Hi everyone, how are you feeling today? Good? Well, I woke up this morning, I felt very bad because I had a cold yesterday and I was coughing a lot. But then, the fact that I'm happen to be here today on stage and doing the talk right here is a statement for what I'm going to talk about in the speech, later. So forgive me if I will be coughing a bit, but I'll try my best to calm it down. All right, so, I get quite jealous with the kids these days because they get to have a lot of good photos and videos of themselves taken during their childhood time. So later in life, they can look at the photos and video and know exactly what they did back in the day. It wasn't the same story for me because a few years ago, I came back here in Vietnam and I asked my mom if she happened to keep any of the photos of me when I was like little boy. It wasn't easy because, but then we managed to find a few photos of me when I was about 3 to 5 years of age. And the funny thing was, in almost all of the photos, it was me doing something either stupid or dangerous. Just like this one. It was me, 3 years of age, climbing a tree. And then I remember my mom was so brave that she let me to discover, everything, the world outside of me all by myself. And I would bleed, I would fall, and I would get back up again. So that, being exposed to pain very early on in life has strengthened my confidence and my courage later in years. Now, a few months ago, during one of the soccer training games, I got pushed by a player and then I fell pretty hard on the ground. And I got a very bad tough burn on my left arm. But I didn't feel anything during the heat of the moment. And then I came home and tried to sanitize my wound using the alcohol spray. And man, it was painful. It was like 1,000 of needles sticking to my arm. But then in that moment, there was something strange happened to me. I felt a rush of happiness shooting through my brain. And I couldn't explain why, why happy. It was a very painful experience. And then a few days later, I started to realize, my head was always on the cloud. I was thinking idea. I lost touch with reality. So the pain is sort of something that slapped me in the face and brought me back to reality and reminded me how I got here to my current self. And that whole story has really inspired me to come up with the topic for today, which I'm going to talk about, pain. I would begin by speaking a bit about the nature of life and existence. So has anybody here seen this photo before? Raise your hand. Yeah, everybody, I guess. So it is called the diagram of the ultimate good, or you can call it the yin and yang symbol. So it describes the basic nature of life in a very perfect sense. Everything is in motion, moving around harmoniously. There's white and there's black. There's the known and there's the unknown. There's good and there's bad. So, very perfect in a sense. But as I grow older, I have a slightly different opinion about this one. And if I were to draw this graph again, it's going to turn out to be something quite like this. And can you tell the difference? So for me, the big part, the black part seems to be a lot bigger than the white part. And the reason being, in life we have, even if we think we know everything, there seems to be a lot of things that we can't control and, we don't know. For example, I'm pretty good at driving and I think I'm good at driving a car, right? But then I can never tell for sure if I will be hit by another car. And then you go to work tomorrow and you get fired by your boss, even if you're sure you have done nothing wrong at all. So that sort of chaos and predictability in life they bring about chaos and suffering altogether. So what can we do about it? Well, for me, we can start looking at what is the good things about the past generations. Because look, pain and suffering is nothing new. It's been here for ages. It's just that recently and now today we have so many influence by social media like TikTok, Snapchat and things. And then sometimes we forget what it is like to do the right things or how to live the right ways. And there's a reason why some of the greatest men in history, like Gautama Buddha, Jesus Christ, Socrates, Confucius, Lao Tzu and everybody, they would also speak about life as a place full of suffering and pain. But then that was exactly the same reason why they became great, because they deal with the pain head on and moved forward. And since we're talking about the past, I would like to bring you on a journey back to like 3,000 years ago, all the way to the West. There was a civilization that built the foundation of what the West is today. They were ancient Greeks, and they have this beautiful proverb, pathemata, mathemata, which means learning through pain and suffering. Now I kind of believe in them because, if pain and suffering was in fact the key driver and the outcome of building such a huge and remarkable civilization, then we must all take pain and suffering seriously. Now let's talk about pain. So for me, there's two kinds of pain in this world. The first kind of pain, I call it involuntary pain or uninitiated pain. It is uninitiated because you don't go look for it. You don't get to choose it. It just happened to you. Like the example of me, hitting a car, or you're losing your job, or you're losing your loved one. It is like when the big black part of the modified yin and yang symbol attacking your little known world. So the job of involuntary pain is just to cause you suffering. And the other kind of pain is, I call it voluntary pain. This is the kind of pain that you go towards it. And no, I'm not talking about self-harm, because there's no meaningful purpose attached to self-harm. I'm talking about the kind of pain that that is purposeful and has some meaning attached to it. It's like when you voluntarily expand your little known world into the big black part of the unknown. And I'm not here today to talk about involuntary pain, because I know there's a lot of ancient teachings that show you how to deal with this kind of pain, like the teaching of Buddhism, Taoism, Stoicism, even existentialism. I'm here today to further elaborate on the voluntary pain and how, if you go to them strategically, it will help strengthen and defend you from your current or future hardship. I have this story to tell. So back in 2017, I was traveling in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And while I was there, I wanted to do something cultural about this country. And I decided to do Muay Thai. And in Muay Thai, when you kick, you don't kick with your foot, which is your bottom part, like Taekwondo. You actually kick with your shin bone. So the shin bone is like the bone in front of your leg here. It's pretty tough. And the funny thing is, you would also defend the kick using your shin bone as well. So you raise your leg like this. So can you imagine how it feels when the two shin bones collide? Like that? I tell you what, it's very painful. Really, really painful. And then I asked my trainer, who had like 300 fights before in his life, and I asked him how could he tolerate such a pain. And he told me, even in his last fight, it was still hurting. And he told me, I have to kick the heavy bag all the time. Now, the heavy bag is the bag you can see here in the picture. It's just bigger, thicker, heavier, and it's harder to kick. And every time you kick the heavy bag, there's going to be some micro damage to your shin bone, just like the right image of my shin bone. But it will heal itself over time. And then if you kick the heavy bag day after day after day, your shin will become conditioned. And then you will feel less painful. And then, I remember the word he said to me, less painful. Certainly it wasn't painless. It was less painful. And can you see the difference? It's like saying, well, life won't stop being difficult, but it can get easier as we live through it. Now, and then you can ask me, well, how do I find and seek purposeful pain? I think the answer is pretty simple. You define a purpose, and then you go and kick your own heavy bag. And that's what I mean by, the image of me kicking the heavy bag in Chiang Mai and get my shin conditioned. The purpose was for me to, go to have a fight. Or the image of me back in the day when I was climbing a tree, right? I was falling down. But then the purpose was for me to hopefully one day I can climb the highest tree and the highest mountains, and I will make sure I will not fall. So the art is in every baby step that you take towards the purpose. And at the end of the journey, you can safely and proudly and confidently say to yourself, I've been there, I've done that, and what's next? Now, recently in the modern days, people often associate the pursuit of happiness with the lack of pain and suffering. People are very quick to negate any kind of pain, and we would seek help for even the smallest damage possibly imagine. So years ago when I was at uni, I read this book from Dr. Jonathan Hay. It's called The Happiness Hypothesis. And within that book there was a very good line that I still remember till today. It was, ancient philosophy is often a better teacher than modern psychology. Now, I can't deny the effect and the role of modern psychology in our society in the last 30, 40 years, and I'm very grateful that it has become a lot more accessible here in Vietnam. But then, for me, modern psychology can sometimes be protective or overly protective. And I'm not talking about the big major psychological issue like depression and things, and for that you have to seek professional help. But for smaller, minor sort of issues, perhaps this is a better idea for you to deal with it head on and voluntarily do the right things. And that's what I mean by kicking your own happy bag. I know it's gonna be painful, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but then it would also bring you to a better version of yourself. In other words, you get conditioned to living your life. And now I want everybody in this room today to understand and to remember that you are the prime facilitator of your own change, of your own transformation, and don't ever let anybody or anything take that away from you. So that's about modern psychology. So what about ancient philosophy? For me, that's what I mean by looking at the past generations, right? I often associate ancient philosophy with a range of classical virtues that people talk a lot back in the day, but not enough recently, like courage, like responsibility, like sacrifice. And now today I want to talk about courage. It is the last missing piece in our puzzle, because we already define a purpose and we know the pain associated with a purpose. And then courage is a thing that would take you out of your bed and start taking actions. And every time I speak about courage, I usually associate with this illustration from a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell back in 1949. So it describes a cycle of transformation. So a normal person would appear on top. He's just a normal, typical person like us. And then he has a call from his conscience that he needs to do something better to have an extraordinary life. And then he summoned his courage to venture into the unknown. As you can see here, he moves through the unknown. And while he was moving to the unknown, there was a lot of people on the way to help him out, like the angels, the guardians, the mentors, and everybody. And they would prepare him for the biggest challenge of his life, which is often, the death or life situation. And he would go through it as well. And he would return, transform into a hero, and claim the reward of life. Now, if I remove all the unrealistic and mythical values in here, and I prepare something very simple like that, and I put myself in there, it's going to be like this. I used to be in Australia a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it was me on top, living in Australia. I had a good life, a good job, everything was good. I was dancing every day. Then one day I woke up and then started to realize I wanted to do something different, to have my own personal breakthrough and to live an extraordinary life. So I summoned within me the courage to venture into the unknown, which for me was traveling to many countries in the world, including Chiang Mai, where I started learning Muay Thai. And I bear the responsibility for that. It was my actions and my choice. I don't blame anybody. And it was me who did that. And then along the way, I met with a lot of great people who shared with me all kinds of knowledge and ideas about life and everything. And then I could start to experience the sacrifice bit right here. I started to realize the life I had back in Australia was never the life I wanted. And that is the metaphor for sacrifice right there. You have to let your past self die in order for your new self to emerge and to be born. And that's a sacrifice. And literally speaking, the sacrifice was for me as well to give up my life back in Australia and replace with the life I'm going to have, which is to start a business and to have a lot of challenges ahead. But I chose it. And then I came back to Vietnam and started my own business and completed my the journey of the hero. Now, if you throw me away from this graph here and then you replace you in there, you put any purpose in your life, any aspect in your life, I'm pretty sure it's going to make sense somehow as well. So the moral story of everything here is that courage, when you give it to yourself, there will be always people around to help you out with that journey. And courage is like the foundation of every breakthrough. It is when you know it's going to hurt, but you still choose to do it. It is when you don't have, you know you don't have enough evidence, but you still choose to start taking actions. And you act like a hero in your personal story of your own life, because I know everybody here you know and you want the best for yourself. And that for me is a less painful way to life. My name is Tri, and thank you for listening.